formal education is filled with questions with right and wrong answers, but I don't think coaching, teaching, educating is as clear-cut as right and wrong. And this is one of the tasks, one of the parts of a course that I'm currently doing. It's about planning and time management. What I need to do is drag these points into either good or bad. So, using this first one as the example, complaints from parents and carers. So, does good planning and time management lead to complaints from parents and carers, or does poor time management lead to complaints from parents and carers? Now, if you think that's from poor planning and time management, you are right. That was the answer. But this is where I want to add nuance and context. I coach trampoline. If you've got 4 people around one trampoline, one person's on at a time. So if you split it up, say 2 minutes ago, they're on for 2 minutes, they're then off for 6. A parent or carer can still complain, and I have seen it, they still complain that their child, their adult, isn't on the trampoline long enough, so they want longer goes. But if they have longer goes, the other people are off for longer as well. And so the good planning and time management from the coach to give everyone equal opportunity on the trampoline still led to complaints from parents and carers. Now, for a bit of context of what good planning is in the eyes of this course, it was about turning up on time, making sure you leave after everyone else, but then also making sure everyone gets equal opportunity doing whatever the activity is, which good planning, as used in my example, that would be good planning, but it still led to complaints. A different example from football, so an invasion game sport, is when you have a coach that has a philosophy, such as mine, which is ecologically inclined, you may be more freeform and it look more like an organised mess rather than organised lines. Well, if a parent wants to see everyone in lines and the coach shouting instructions, that parent may complain if it's more of an organised mess because they aren't seeing what they would expect to see. Now, the coach, for them, is good planning and time management. The parent doesn't see the same thing because they're expecting something else. So what good means to the parent, to the carer, to the coach is going to be different, which will lead to different complaints. So I don't think the complaint just fits in this box. But let's move on. So participants stay loyal to the club. Is that from good planning and time management or poor? That'll be good. Well, that's the right answer anyway. However, as you may expect, there's context and nuance in this because participants staying loyal to a club is also reliant on the individuals in the club. 2 sides of this. Sometimes you can have sessions that are not planned, not organised, but the group of people in the team, in the group, in the club want to stay together, so they are loyal to the club, not because of the good planning or good time management of the coach. In fact, I've been in some teams that have really, really poor planning and time management, but because the kids, myself, because I was the player, wanted to be involved, we stayed together. But then on the other side of that, you could have a coach that has really good, again using their definition of good, planning and time management, but a participant still leave the club because of the social and cultural environment of the team, of the club. Maybe there's a friend that gets bullied at school, or there's disagreement between perspectives or opinions or something in there. So this stay loyal to the club, it's too vague. It doesn't fit in the box. Inadequate preparation. That is poor, but very similar to complaints. What does inadequate mean? And for me, this actually relates to running a coaching club, team, community, whatever you want to call it. If, for example, the coaches are paid for planning. This is some of the advice that I was given. What do I do if a coach says it takes me 4 hours to plan for a 1-hour session for it to be adequate planning? Do I have to pay the coach for 4 hours and then the 1-hour session? But then on the other side, you may have someone that turns up straight away and has games, practices, tasks, ideas that they're going to work with straight away, so there's no time for the planning before session, but it's still an organised sport activity, physical activity, whatever you want to call it. So I don't think time is a useful metric as whether it's adequate or inadequate when it comes to planning, nor do I think a session plan is adequate or inadequate because things will change. So I then start thinking about preparation. Does preparation start before the session? How long before the session? Is that 3 weeks ago when you saw something happen at the match or at a competition? You go, okay, we're gonna do this at some point in the future? Or is it preparation, you're seeing them make mistakes and you want to shift the session to do something else, which may be more effective for them now? But that's really not preparation. That's adapting. As you can tell, I find these words very vague and not very useful. I would much rather have a conversation than put these into boxes of good and poor. Next up, fun and interesting sessions. That is in the good. And here I want to talk about a situation that I had, or an experience I had inside of a school. If equipment, if the environment, if the venue, if the numbers change, the plan that you had in your nicely laid out session plan kind of gets thrown to the wind if some serious things happen. Maybe you have to go from outside to inside. Well, now you have to do a completely different activity. And the example I want to share is the plan in school, after school club, was to play football, but the football burst. It happens. And all we had access to was tennis balls. The session that was planned and managed out in time was thrown out, and we, as in myself and the other coach, came up with a session with the individuals with the tennis balls that we had. And because I have background in handball, team handball, we played an adapted version of handball. We had one tennis ball, there were 10 kids, so 5 in one goal, 5 in the other, and they had to throw the ball into the goal. But it was the width of the playground. So they were playing an adapted version of handball. The closest they could get was the halfway line, but some of them were throwing it way up into the sky to try and loop it down, others throwing it really fast, and the defensive team just stood on the line and put their hands in the way. And that was one of the most fun and interesting sessions the kids had. That's what they said. Can we do this next week? They were there for football, but they wanted to play this adapted version of handball that we came up with on the spot. As you can tell, I'm emotional about this. So good, it doesn't fit. I think sometimes the dynamic sessions that come up out of nowhere are some of the most fun and interesting sessions. By the definition of good planning, that's not good planning, it's poor planning, but it's fun and interesting. Board participants and coaches. That goes over to the poor side. As a little bit of context here, the way that I found myself answering these questions to get it right in the course was thinking, what do they want to give me as the right answer? Not what is the answer that I would give. Just some insight for those that are creating courses like this. I'm answering the question the way that I think you want me to answer it. So board participants and coaches comes from poor planning and time management. And again, I imagine coaches and teachers can probably come up with plenty of examples where this just isn't true. One that I'm thinking about right now is I had a session, I was coaching football, and there were 12 participants. 11 of them fully engaged, fully active, hadn't been running the session long, couple of minutes, and everyone was going except from one who started active and then got bored very quickly because it was too easy for them. Now, is that good planning or poor planning? Now, on reflection, I could have added another activity, but where? Because I had no more equipment, I had no other space because I was restricted, which meant they were essentially lost with something to do. What do I do there? Do I focus on this one person to keep them active and engaged, or do I focus on the 11? And I don't think there's a right answer here, but that is the complexity of coaching. Bored participants, you'll get people that are bored with the best plan and time management in the world because of something that they're interested in. I've seen people just go off and play with butterflies that are on the field rather than playing rugby or cricket that they're meant to be engaged in. It's not entirely under the coach's control as to whether they are bored or not with the planning and time management of the session, and some people just don't want to be there on that day. And I would argue, go home and do something that suits them at that time, rather than forcing them to be engaged in an activity they don't want to be doing. And breathe, but then we also have coaches. Some of the best sessions that I've put on from a learning perspective for individuals is where I've been the most bored because I've set them a task and it's been appropriate, desirable difficulty for the individuals, and they have problem solved that task together as a team, as a group, and I just stood back and watched for almost 10 minutes. Now, I'm not doing anything, but I've created the environment for those individuals to learn. I got bored, so I'm sitting there going, what do I do now? But I would argue that's one of the best and most effective sessions I had put on in that time of my coaching experiences. So again, I don't think this fits into these boxes. And of course, I'm advertising my philosophy here, so let's go down here to positive reviews of the club, self-advertising. That is the good. That's from good planning and time management. But as I mentioned earlier with the examples from the parents and what they expect, you may get negative reviews even if you're effective in your coaching, and this is something I've experienced a lot, especially when shifting from traditional instruction, direct instruction focused, highly constrained sessions to more ecological and following the constraints-led approach. Parents have expectations of what they want from their teachers and their coaches, and if those expectations don't match the coaches, you're gonna get a negative review, or at least have a conversation with them, hopefully to work out and explain your philosophy, their philosophy, and work something out. You could have the best planning, the best time management, the child enjoys it, they're effectively learning, they're problem solving, but you're not shouting at the child and telling them exactly what to do, which is what the parent wants or carer wants you to do. So they give you a bad review because you're letting them do whatever it is and they're making loads of mistakes. And then on the other side of that, the coach could be doing absolutely nothing, poor time management, poor planning, but you still get positive reviews because the child is loving the session because they're engaged with the other kids that are just messing around and having fun. So it could be, yes, I love this, it's free form, you're letting the children do what they want, or I hate this because you're letting the children do what they want. Positive reviews is not specific to the planning and time management. There are so many other aspects that relate to parents, carers, individuals' perspective of what is effective and ineffective sessions. And moving on, frustrated participants. I am currently a frustrated participant, as you can tell from boxing these things, but where do you think this goes? Yep, that's right, poor planning and time management. And this one for me links directly within philosophy of coaching. If someone is doing something that's very easy, very simple, they don't get frustrated at all, they are likely pretty good at it. They have high expertise. So are they more likely to learn something if they're already very good at it, or when they're frustrated at it? So is good planning doing something that someone's already really good at and doing something that is easy? Or is good planning giving them a desirable difficulty for them to get frustrated and then learn how to problem solve? I would argue good planning and preparation leads to frustrated participants, but the answer that I knew they were going to ask for is poor. Because no, you don't want participants getting frustrated because that's negative. But it's not negative, it's useful for learning. Which brings us to enhanced learning. Of course, that goes into the good planning and preparation. But as mentioned previously, all the way through this, looking at the academic literature, enhanced or effective learning is very difficult to quantify. And sounding very much like an academic here, it completely depends on so many other factors as to whether there is effective or enhanced learning, not just good planning and time management. Is there desirable difficulty in session? Is the person engaged? Does the person want to problem solve? Is the person paying attention to the plan of the session or something else? Is the objective or the skill or the quality characteristic that you put in your session plan you want them to develop, is that something they're developing? If not, then is it effective? Is it ineffective? Maybe you have a session that you want to help someone learn how to lose. So maybe you deliberately plan the session so they get frustrated, so they can you help them manage their emotions. That could look like a deliberately poorly planned session because maybe you turn up late and they get frustrated, and maybe you ask them to do something multiple times and again they get more frustrated, and you're shouting at them, telling them exactly what to do when they need to do it, and again they get more frustrated, they get angry, you get negative reviews from the parent. But the point of the session was to help them manage their emotions through frustration. Enhanced or effective learning in that context almost requires poor planning by definition. These are the nuances that I would love to discuss more in coach education, coach development, but I'm not seeing it. But of course, everyone will disagree. Everyone has a different coaching philosophy, and I'm just being open and honest here. Now, I recreated this graphic from a level 1 course I'm currently doing, and there's nothing against that course. It's nothing against the national governing body doing it, but a lot of coach education that I've experienced outside of university is very, very similar. Now, there are loads of other examples I could give, but this is the one that really got me going, as you can tell by the video. So now if you agree, disagree, want to add context or share your opinions, you can do that in the comment section below.